The Levi Garrett Buick Morgan Shepherd continues to hold the lead as we have completed 18 laps of the Richmond 400. The battle continues for second position among several drivers, including Darrell Waltrip, Benny Parsons, Joe Ruttman, and Ron Bouchard. While we were away, the green, of course, came out, and Kyle Petty got sideways down in turn number 1, and some parts flew off of that car as we have our second yellow of the afternoon coming out for some unknown reason. We don't see anything on the racetrack, but perhaps some parts on the racetrack or something that is causing this yellow. As we were indicating, Kyle Petty did get sideways at least down in turn number 1, and parts did come off of that car. I think perhaps at least one car hit that debris, and perhaps that is the reason for the yellow at this time.
We have our first interesting caution, and Darrell Waltrip, the driver running in second place and one of the pre-race favorites, is pitting under this early caution flag. There you see Waltrip in the Mountain Dew car rolling to a stop along pitway. Bob, we noticed he was beginning to run a little loose on the racetrack. The car was washing out of the racing lane, particularly as he exited turns 2 and 4, and Benny Parsons was threatening, was actually underneath Darrell as they came down to complete the last green flag lap.
Well, it looks like that Darrell is not taking, well, he's being held up, of course, by the pit officials as the field passes by so that he cannot gain a lap. He's being held and will have to fall in at the rear of the field. So Darrell Waltrip pits early here in the Richmond 400, apparently because of some handling problems that he was having. One of the stories that we've got to cover for you is the fact that Richard Petty broke his foot at Daytona last week in a race. Nevertheless, he is here competing today.
Well, Richard right now is behind the wheel. There you see him earlier this week sitting along pit wall. He was hobbling around here on crutches all week. There is a cast on that foot. It's a specially designed cast that has a hinge on it. It's actually his brake and gas pedal foot that has the problem of the damage from the accident last week at Daytona. And the information that we received earlier this morning from Steve Turner, the STP representative in the Petty pits, was that Richard will definitely not go the distance today. Now, I would have thought, Bob, there might have been an opportunity for Petty to pit early here during this early caution flag to change drivers. Now, there's Harry Gant sitting on the front stretch.
And that car is being held up for some reason. We, meanwhile, go down to the Waltrip pit and Leanne Riley.
Darrell Waltrip Mountain Dew team, why did you change those right outside tires?
Darrell called in and said he thought he had a right front tire going down, so we got lucky break and got a caution flag, so we figured we came and take a look at it. Fortunately, it wasn't one, so I think we got everything under control right now.
Thank you very much. Jeff told us that they thought they were having a flat tire happening on the right front, so they decided to take advantage of the caution.
So as we speculated, a handling problem has brought Darrell Waltrip into the pit area, and he is now at the rear of the field. Meanwhile, Harry Gant comes into the pits once again, and there is still problems with that number 33 Skoal Bandit Buick.
Well, Bob, that's an interesting situation developing here with Harry Gant. As we noted earlier, he pulled into the pits under green flag. He darted to the pits. The crew had no idea why he stopped. The next thing that occurred was NASCAR stopped him here at the start-finish line. Now he's back into the pits again.
Still under yellow because of debris on the racetrack. So while we are yellow, we will take this break and be back with more live coverage of the Richmond 400 Grand National race. Back in Richmond, Virginia, where Morgan Shepherd and Benny Parsons now run 1-2 as the green flag comes out and we restart the Richmond 400 after our second caution of the afternoon because of debris on the racetrack. Morgan Shepherd has looked strong in that number 98 Levi Garrett Buick in the early going of this race. He took over the lead in turn number 2 after the green had fallen and has held it. Now, because Darrell Waltrip made the pit stop a few laps ago, Benny Parsons moves into second. Joe Ruttman still running in third place. Ron Bouchard is fourth. Dave Marcus is in fifth position. Richard Petty has moved up to sixth. Seventh is Dale Earnhardt. Eighth is Terry Labonte. Ninth is Ricky Rudd. And 10th is Joe Milligan. We had been told prior to the start of the race that Ricky Rudd's car was experiencing an alternator problem, but no evidence of that right now as Rudd is running in the top 10.
Also keep in mind, this is scheduled to be a 400 lap race. You see Shepherd continuing the lead. There is the battle back in the 7th and 8th positions between Dale Earnhardt and the number 44 car of Terry Labonte. Now, this is an important season for both of those young drivers. Earnhardt, of course, the national champion from 2 years ago, was shut out last year as far as wins go. He did win earlier this year at Daytona already, but he's still looking for that next Grand National win. For Labonte, he also won a couple of years ago. Both of these guys, two of the younger chargers on the trail, they both really need to have good seasons to more or less keep their careers on track.
There is good racing all over this track. Also battles up front, but this one involving Dale Earnhardt and Terry Labonte. The best at this time was Labonte is trying to get around Dale Earnhardt, as Larry indicated, the 1979 Rookie of the Year and then a former national champion also in the Grand National Racing. Good battle for the lead here, actually, with Benny Parsons right on the back bumper of Morgan Shepherd as the cars start into turn number 1. We have completed 29 laps of the 400 that make up the Richmond 400 here in Richmond, Virginia at the State Fairgrounds. Benny Parsons running in second position. Here is Dave Marcus battling with Ron Bouchard, and Dave Marcus now moves into 4th position. Dave Marcus, the number 71 Stacy Chevrolet, able to pass Ron Bouchard in also a Stacy prepared car. His is a Buick. Ron Bouchard, of course, from Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, outside of the Deep South, being passed by Dave Marcus in car number 71.
And up front, Benny Parsons has worked his way to the inside of Morgan Shepherd. Here they come down the front stretch. Parsons leads that lap. You saw the nose ahead at the start-finish line, and Benny Parsons slips underneath.
Benny Parsons will be scored as the leader on lap number 31, as his car was about a half a car length ahead of Morgan Shepherd as they came down to the start-finish line. A new leader in this race, the second of the afternoon, Benny Parsons. In the number 28 J.D. Stacy Pontiac, running second Morgan Shepherd, and third, hanging right in there, is Joe Ruttman in the number 2 Stacy Buick. We had talked earlier several times, as a matter of fact, of Harry Gant, who has made a couple of pit stops here in the early going. He was held up at the starting line. We should point out that he was held up simply because he would gain a lap if he were not held up. So he has not lost a lap. He is on the same lap as the leaders, and now Harry Gant trying to move up through traffic.
Well, Shepherd, who was the obvious superior machine in the first 10 laps of this race, appears to be slowing down just a bit in comparison to the other front runners. Benny Parsons, as you can see there on your screen, has gotten by, and Joe Ruttman is really putting the pressure on the back bumper of Morgan Shepherd. Ruttman, of course, the driver who now makes his home in California, originally from the Detroit, Michigan area. He's a guy who, for the first 10 years of his career, ran on a track pretty similar to this just about every week. So Joe Ruttman, though he is new to Grand National stock car racing, is very much at home on a short or half-mile, relatively flat racetrack.
Well, let's go down the standings at the end of 30 laps, and we have completed 34. The leader, Benny Parsons, second position, involving the number 98 of Morgan Shepherd. We have a spin up in turn number 3 involving a couple of cars. Tom Sneva is involved in number 37, and again Gary Ballou in the number 75 car. Ballou, with a problem earlier, has also spun again here in turn number 3, but apparently Ballou, as was the case a while ago, will be able to keep going, although we have brought out the third caution of the afternoon.
Well, it has been indeed a long week for Gary Ballou. He comes across the start-finish line with smoke pouring from the left front of the race car. What happens usually in an incident like that when a couple of cars touch. And you see Ballou very unhappy, apparently, with Tom Sneva, as Ballou pulled up behind Tom as they came out of turn number 2. Ballou is heading for the pit area to pull that bodywork away from the left front. Gary Ballou apparently very displeased about that incident that took place 1 lap ago. Ballou comes into the pit. Sneva is right behind him. They are pitting at opposite ends of the pit area here, and many of the front-running cars are also using this opportunity to come in.
While we watch, Gary Ballou will tell you some of the other drivers into the pit. Ron Bouchard is in, so is Ricky Rudd. Darrell Waltrip in for a second time. Bobby Allison is pitting. Jody Ridley is pitting, and so is Neil Bonnet, along with a couple of others. So busy pit road here on the 37th lap as we go down to Leandra Riley.
Car number 75 is still in the pits. They're having a little bit of trouble getting on that left inside front tire. A little bit of trouble when they're just about to have him out of the pits. They gave him some fuel, just came on the inside, and he's off again, as you can see.
All right, Gary Ballou pulling back onto the racetrack now. Darrell Waltrip pulling out also back into the fray as we are under our third caution period of the afternoon. So Benny Parsons has the lead with Morgan Shepherd running in second position as we continue our coverage of the Richmond 400 in a moment.
Trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my